This is all theater. This is all just political theater.
Political theater. Political theater.
Pure political
theater.
Theater.
Political theater.
The nefarious,
significant and protracted
political theater for political theater's sake.
I yield back.
From Washington, this is Political Theater, Roll Call's review of the spectacle of politics on Capitol Hill and across the country. I'm Jason Dick. Welcome back to Political Theater. Here at Roll Call, we like to step back every so often and just groove. And what better way to do that than by being part of the upcoming Congressional Record musical program on Capitol Hill? We'll be the media sponsors, along with the Kennedy Center, Library of Congress, and the Recording Academy. It'll be on September 17th, and we'll bring together members of Congress from both sides of the aisle to showcase their musical talents as they play some of their favorite tunes at the Capitol Visitor Center. For this episode, I'm going to be doing some shameless plugging with two of the guys who put this Battle of the Bands together, Jeff Browning and Kevin Canifax. Jeff, Kevin, welcome to Political Theater.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yes, wonderful to be here. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. It's also a pleasure to not be in Chicago or Milwaukee at this time of year.
They're lovely cities.
Not that I didn't love the conventions. Not that I didn't love the music at the conventions. I mean, I had not seen Kid Rock. I had not seen John Legend or Jason Isbell. Actually, I have seen Jason Isbell when I saw the Drive-By Truckers years ago when he was still part of the Truckers. But this is a different kind of music that we'll be talking about. I'm really excited about this. But before we talk about the event itself, Congressional Record, let's talk a little bit about you guys and your backgrounds. I mean, you're government affairs types. You've been in politics and public policy for a while, but so do a quick intro of yourselves, but then let's get right into talking about Congressional Record and your relationship to music and why this event is going to be awesome.
Great.
Sure. Kevin, you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. See, there's that Midwest politeness on my end. Thank you. And again, wonderful to be here. So I have 30 years of experience with Fidelity Investments, all in public affairs and external affairs. And chief among my responsibilities is government affairs, local, state, and federal to a certain extent. We have a team in D.C. that handles federal government relations on a daily basis, but I augment or supplant that as needed. And, obviously been in this line of work even prior to Fidelity. I worked for the local regional chamber of commerce and did some government affairs work in that capacity as well.
Awesome.
Sure. So I'm Jeff Browning. I grew up in Massachusetts. When I was in college, I met my congressman, Jim McGovern, at an event and asked him for an internship, and he very graciously said yes. That set off about 11 years on the Hill. I worked for him. I interned for Ted Kennedy, as well as for Barney Frank. I went on to help Barney Frank with his book that he wrote, which was a really awesome project. Then I worked for Anna Eshoo and Catherine Clark. I think I was Catherine Clark's first legislative assistant she hired, and I was there through her leadership race. After that, I spent 2 years working for a humanitarian organization, and now I've spent 3 years working for a company called ServiceNow. We do cybersecurity, IT auditability, and modernization stuff for federal agencies, Fortune 500 companies, customers globally. It's a really cool job. And yeah, grateful to be here, grateful to be part of this project.
All right. Well, let's talk about this project because we've, I think, Jeff, you and I first talked about it, I think, in February at the congressional dinner over, at the, and it, that was like one of those loud events where we're like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. Let's talk, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And here we are a few months later and, let's talk about Congressional Record, about this, event that you guys have put together and what we can expect, because I think people maybe if they're listening to this in the morning, they're thinking like, wait, what? Members of Congress, Battle of the Bands, what? Rewind.
Well, I would add an asterisk and say it's not quite a battle of the bands. The goal is for them to perform music together.
Right.
We have incredible sponsors involved. We have Americans for the Arts. We have the others that you mentioned earlier. It really is a team effort. And we have a pretty amazing group of bipartisan members who've expressed interest in performing. And it's really exciting. We're going to have a professional backing band with them. We have a lot of resources in place to make sure that their performances are a total success. And also, I think the event is just going to have a really special value to it. I don't really think anything like this, it's pretty new. It's a pretty new concept. And we have a lot of good folks involved. I'm here in the studio of my friends Viva Creative, who are our production partner on the event. We have a lot of really, really cool stuff coming together for folks. I think it's going to be a really special night.
Kevin, talk about your, relationship to this, and how you came together with Jeff on planning this event, and we'll talk about some of the people who we can expect to perform in a little bit, but just like your origin story with Jeff and this event.
And it's a great parallel story to this event that's going to take place, as Jeff said, first time ever anything of this magnitude and scale and engagement has taken place historically. More on that later. The origins of this are absolutely amazing. And I say that because there have been so many serendipitous events and moments that sometimes make me feel like this thing was meant to be. So let's go back to 2008. I had this idea in Greater Cincinnati to get people in the community that are professionals, corporate professionals, teachers, doctors, nonprofit leaders, higher education presidents who have some music talent or ability together to do a charitable event. And I've attended enough of these events to notice that it might be better to have some music rather than a speaker. And in addition, I knew all these people in the circles in the community because they were in bands or they were learning to play the guitar, whatever the case may be. And so we went to a nonprofit organization called the Carnegie Arts Center. We pitched this idea. We became their chief fundraiser. So we are going into our 17th year of Suits That Rock. We've raised $2 million for arts education programming in the Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky region. And, that is significant in and of itself. But the camaraderie and the reaction and the impact of these people getting up on stage and performing a 3-hour concert was just life-changing. And my biggest takeaway were the relationships that were established by virtue of playing music together. That, number one. Number two, irrespective of what your background is, what your political ideology or your affiliation is, it didn't matter. People got up on stage, they played music, they did it for a good cause. And I have always thought about doing this in Congress. Call me crazy, but going back several years ago, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could get members of Congress? Because I knew a couple at the time that were musicians. And I had fits and starts where I'd start down the path. I'd start doing research. I would go and look at bios of Congress members. I would just do an internet search to see if I could find anybody or anything. And truth be told, I just couldn't get anywhere. I could not get any traction. And then this past summer, the summer of 23, I decided, you know what? I'm really going to put forth the effort to make this happen. So this is where the story gets really, really interesting. I start doing my internet research and I start discovering names, including a congressman in Louisville, Kentucky, Congressman Morgan McGarvey, whom I cross paths with occasionally because of my job. I talked to him about it. He said, that's really a cool idea. There are a few of us as members who are already getting together informally and playing or jamming or whatever the case may be. And I continued to do my research. I started to get a little momentum. I found some names. And then the magic moment occurred. In my internet search, this name, Jeff Browning, comes up. And I'm
sorry.
No, this is what's so great about this. And I read about his background, and as he just shared a few moments ago, and that he was in a touring band. And I thought, wow, now this is a guy I need to connect with to talk to about this. Well, I type in his name, his Facebook page comes up. I shoot him a Facebook message. 2 days later, he responded. And here we are. Literally, that was the catalytic moment, the transformative moment that took this from concept to reality. And I will say this, unequivocally, this event would not be happening if it were not for Jeff Browning. He's incredible. Not only his Beltway connections and relationships, and
erroneous.
He's a musician, but he is just the glue that has really brought this whole thing together. So it's amazing. And so every time we take another step forward, and we've had lots of obstacles, as you might imagine, in trying to put this thing together. Some that are, just natural obstacles, some unforeseen, but we've been able to continue to move forward, continue with the momentum. And here we are talking to you about this event happening on September 17th.
And I would note that when you were Googling, so I did used to play in a touring band, when I worked for Congresswoman Clark, I toured sort of around the voting calendar. It was exhausting, but it was amazing. We toured from Maine to North Carolina. It was a lot of fun. And I think one of the things you found was actually a roll call clip about my band. And that's what led us together. So it's very fortuitous that now we're here with Roll Call, a newspaper that I've been reading ever since my earliest days as a staffer. And we're just really honored to have you as a part of it. We really are.
And Jason, there was one more key development I want to share that is very integral to this evolution. And that is, I also had a friend who had worked with Governor Mike Huckabee. Mm-hmm. And I knew Governor Huckabee was a musician. In fact, I think he has a show. He plays bass guitar. And I asked this friend of mine, this mutual friend, to make an introduction. I reached out to him, had a phone call, told him about this vision, this idea. He loved it for obvious reasons. And unbeknownst to me, when I'm having the conversation with him, he's on the board of the Kennedy Center. So that is where the real, I think, forward momentum began, is when he brought the Kennedy Center into the conversation. And then Jeff and I were talking with them. And then all of a sudden, momentum begets momentum. And all the great partners and participants that we have to date are all as a result of those three things really happening.
And 15 years ago, as a junior staffer, when I looked out at what my life in DC would be like, I did not have collaborating on a creative project with Mike Huckabee on my bingo card. But it's an incredible privilege to be working with him, even though, I worked for Democrats in the House. He has just been awesome.
Awesome.
And we've also had, a lot of high level Democratic support too. So it is a really cool confluence.
Yeah, and I mean this event that we're all doing on the 17th. I mean, one, it's just a great play on words too. Congressional Record. We're here at Roll Call and our we're nerds because we read the Congressional Record, right? But but just having an event named that, and this is we're going to have such a variety of music here. I mean, we'll have kind of more traditional, we'll have rock, I mean, let's talk about some of the acts, because the whole point of this is you kind of stated, Kevin, is bringing people together from all these different parts of the congressional universe, in this case, is there's something really kind of powerful about that, because we are such a busy kind of society, and that's reflected in Congress. The work week has shrunk. People go to a lot of fundraisers. They're very busy. They get on planes and go back home, or they go somewhere, or they're running for president, whatever. And they just don't have a lot of time together anymore. So adding music to that, it's like adding food, right? When people get together around a table, there's something, barriers sort of melt away. And I think that that's especially the case with music, because music is so universal in so many ways. So let's talk about some of the people who are going to be performing and what we can expect from that, because we've going through just the Roll Call archives of photos and stories that we have of members of Congress. It goes way back. There's so much musical talent in Congress. Who are some of the folks that we'll be listening to that evening?
Well, some of that is top secret because we want to save some surprises. We also, we're working with a lot of members right now. We've had a lot of interest. I will say that we dropped off nice invitations to every office, and we reached out to every office, and the response from offices has been overwhelming. Juliet and Sarah, our amazing team, are just overwhelmed with emails that are coming in with members who want to attend or perform or co-host. And as we were handing out the invitations, it was really fun because we had so many smiles, and we walked into front offices and we told people, you know, we're doing this event with Roll Call, Library of Congress, Kennedy Center, the Grammys with members performing. They're like, wait, what? And people really surprised, and they were really into it. I think also you're right about music as the kind of unifying force here. I think it's maybe not, it's maybe not widely understood the impacts that airplanes and air conditioning had on Congress, because air conditioning means instead of everyone coming and sleeping in bunk beds during the cool months, they now stretch it out through all the, let me go back. Because air conditioning means that instead of coming just during the cool months, they stretch it out throughout the year. Airplanes mean that it's like the Tuesday to Thursday club, like they used to call it. People fly in and fly out. So as you said, there's not as much of a reason. It's not popular to live in DC. People don't spend as much time together. But a lot of them play music. A lot of them played casually when they were younger. Some really kind of made a difficult decision to not be professional musicians when they were adolescents, like I did. And a lot of people have kept it up as a dual interest. And so it is really, really cool to be doing that. And one important thing I'd say also is the actual mission and purpose of the event. Because anytime you do an event in the Capitol, it has to have a clear tie-in to legislative business. And so the clear tie-in here is twofold. One is the unifying power of the arts, which is self-explanatory. And two is the importance of arts education. Congress has an enormous impact on kids' lives across the country and adults' lives through support for arts education programs. And having access to that, to those creative and expressive outlets, to learning those disciplines, music, visual arts, whatever it may be, is just really powerful. And I think we'll have an opportunity to do that at this event, also to tell stories about the impacts on students' lives. And we have some really cool surprises in store on that front as well that I'm excited about.
So not even one person, or you want to talk just styles that we might see?
Well, let's talk styles. I will say that the Herd on the Hill story that'll be coming out this week will have some interviews with members who are performing. So that'll be. I was
going to keep that a secret too. I guess we all have our secrets. Yes.
It's really exciting because now we're having these conversations with members about songs. And as you know, there's just such a rich tapestry there to explore stylistically. We're very committed to making sure that the show is stylistically diverse. And so we are aiming to have, you know, music from a lot of different categories, from a lot of different performers. We deliberately chose not to invite big name stars to attend because we didn't want, you know, I think that would kind of pull the oxygen out of the room, and we really want the focus to be on the members. That said, we have gotten actually a fair amount of interest from folks, and we may have some special involvement from names that people are familiar with. So stay tuned on that.
I mean, it's after these conventions, it's. I think the people's expectations are very high. Nobody saw Little John coming. I think at the roll call for Georgia and Democrats. So I'm curious too. Just the two of you and your personal connection to music. I mean, Jeff, you've talked about, being in a band, and you made a decision, sort of early in your career that you were going to be, you're going to focus on public policy and politics and so forth, but you kept playing. But what was your entry point to music? And I'll ask you the same question, Kevin.
Well, my mom's a music teacher, so I actually, believe it or not, I played piccolo in the pit orchestra with Pavarotti when I was -3 months old.
All right.
My mom, when I was in utero, my mom played piccolo in the pit orchestra. So I really grew up with wow. I was lucky to grow up with a room full of noisemakers. I was really lucky to grow up going to music lessons at the Joy of Music program in Worcester, Massachusetts. Wendy and Rich Artizone, who founded that program, are just incredible. It's touched a lot of people's lives. And I was really lucky. I always wanted to play guitar. That was my goal. And my mom made me try every other instrument first, just to be really sure. And then finally got, my first guitar in elementary school. And it kind of all went from there. My teacher for many years, Joe D'Angelo in Worcester, was just an incredible mentor. I played in bands in high school, but then really starting around 2012 in DC was when I kind of decided as an adult to revisit it and do that. And the band I ended up playing in, Band of Tomorrow, was just a lot of fun. We had incredible musicians. Like every every member of that band was an absolute monster. And if you go and listen to the record, it was a difficult record to make, but it absolutely shows through. There's a lot of complexity. It's kind of like ADD in a can, but also hopefully listenable. Maybe we should cut the ADD in a can from the podcast. I don't know if I should say that, but
that rings true. I think it'll ring true for people.
But yeah, that was my history. I played the 930 Club maybe like 10 times or so, with like the Revivalists and Moon Taxi. We played the Firefly Music Festival, which was just a pinnacle of experience. And when we were touring, I kind of had this urgency about it because I felt like this is the point in my life when I will be able to do that. Before I have obligations later in life, when I'll have the time and ability to do it. And I did. We toured. It was great. We got to a good place for the project financially. Since the pandemic, it has been difficult to go back to it, including because I have like additional responsibilities in life. But a lot of the same people who were involved in that project, are following this project with great interest and have been kind of like consulting and talking about it. And I am hopeful eventually that I'll be able to reboot that project and play more shows because it was a lot of fun. And the last thing I'd say would be when I was working on the Hill, it was actually really cool because we had a lot of people come to our shows. Like a lot of my best friends, Republican friends, would come to our shows. Like I would have people in, we'd be playing at 930 Club or Solly's, and I would be like changing the lyrics of songs to be about the rules committee and kind of like subtly call out my friends who were there in the front row. And just, and it was cool because like people would always take my phone calls, and it was really useful. And actually a lot of the, some of the Republican friends who, we jammed with or who came to the shows are now, in senior staff positions on the Hill and are really helping with this event a lot, as far as, outreach and communicating with people about it. So long-winded answer, but that's my kind of musical biography with the political intersects.
Awesome. What about you, Kevin?
Well, my introduction and orientation to music is far less more impressive than Jeff's.
I think most people's will be, yes. We didn't start with Pavarotti and
again,
Utero.
Erroneous.
There you go. but it's, my story is I'm a late bloomer, like a very late bloomer. He and I could not be at more opposite ends of the spectrum. So I was introduced to arts at a very early age. Cincinnati Art Museum, my mother would put me in a taxi cab and send me over there on weekends for an art class because she didn't drive and she was a single mother. And then, it kind of grew from there. I was in grade school. I was in all the theater productions. In high school, I was in the choir for an all-boys school. But one of the perks of being in the choir of the all-boys school is that the all-girls school would sing with us as well. So that generally worked out well. And I drew a lot of pictures for a television show in Cincinnati that was on late night. So that was my arts orientation. Music outside of the choir really didn't begin until probably the early 2000s for me, when these aforementioned people that I had been meeting in the community who were all musicians and in bands, I'm a vocalist. So periodically when I would go out to see them perform, they would bring me up to sing a song. That's kind of how it started. And then after a few of those episodes, people were like, you can actually sing. You should probably do some more of this. So that evolved into me being in a classic rock cover band called Shut Up and Drive for a few years. And then I'm now in a Led Zeppelin cover band called Soul Shadow, and I'm the lead vocalist. And in between that was the creation of Suits That Rock. So we do a show every year as an annual fundraiser for that. So that's my story in terms of music. One anecdote that I know Jeff will appreciate as a musician, and anyone out there watching this podcast would. When I first started singing rock and roll, there was a guitarist that was in Suits That Rock, and then eventually in the band Shut Up and Drive with me. This guy won the first MTV Basement Tapes competition with his band. He was is an incredible guitar player. Anyway, he said to me, he said, "Kevin, you're like a pitcher with a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and has no idea where he's throwing it. Meaning I had the vocal range and the power, but I did not know how to sing. And this guy, Paul Bromwell's his name, I'll give him a plug, single-handedly took me under his wing and taught me how to sing. And that changed everything. So again, you know, you talk about music, you talk about people who pay it forward, it's a gift. And that's what we're giving here. We're giving a gift of music and celebrating the importance of unity and arts education through some very, very important and influential people. And it helps to build and strengthen the relationships and the rapport, which is much, much needed, not only in DC, but in our country and all over the world.
You're bringing a tear to my eye. I feel like John Boehner over here.
Hey, that's my guy, right? That's right. Backyard.
Well, this has been great. And by the way, you both have me beat. You know, I played the trumpet poorly in fourth grade band. Tried to play the piano. Was hopeless at that as well, much to my parents and grandparents' chagrin. And then a few years ago, I tried my hand at the baritone ukulele, which I came the closest to actually being able to strum. It's a 4-string ukulele, so it's closer. It's getting closer to guitar, but again, hopeless at that. But my house is overwrought with vinyl tapes, CDs. Like if it was still a reel to reel world, they would be there too. I mean, I love listening to music. This is what attracted me to working with you all on this event, and I think it's going to be great. September 17th. Congressional Record. It is invitation only, but there will be more information. We'll have more information coming out about that in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks running up to this as we drop little hints at some of the folks who will be performing. And Jeff, Kevin, thank you for putting this together and bringing it to our attention, because we're thrilled to be a part of this event on Capitol Hill.
Grateful to work with you. I'm a longtime reader, first-time caller, and we're really excited that you're a part of this.
It's great. And thank you out there for listening. As usual, remember to do all those podcast things that I neglect to tell you to do at the end of this podcast. Subscribe, like, share it with your friends, listen while you're doing something healthy or unhealthy. My spouse listens to this podcast occasionally when she's on a jog. So that's all we can hope for. Thanks again for listening to Political Theater.